The conflict style that I identify with the most is avoiding. Um, from what the reading told us, the avoiding style involves having kind of a lower concern for both yourself and the other person. At least that's what it says. And it usually means not directly addressing the conflict and avoiding it. Obviously, it's not always the healthiest approach, of course, but I think it's the style that I naturally kind of fall into most often. I tend to avoid conflict because I don't super enjoy arguments, especially if I don't really think it's necessary, or just creating unnecessary tension with other people. If I think a disagreement is small and not super important, I usually just assume it'll kind of work itself out or just fizzle out. I'd rather kind of let it go than risk making the problem bigger. Sometimes it feels easier to change the subject or to keep my thoughts to myself instead of confronting someone. The reading mentions that avoiding can be appropriate when the conflict is temporary, when the issue is not super important, or when there's like little investment on my part or somebody else's part. I think that's true, but not every disagreement is worth turning into a bigger problem. However, of course, I recognize that avoiding conflict can also kind of become a hindrance depending on the type of issue and the type of person that I have the conflict with. The reading also explained that avoiding the conflict kind of builds up frustration on both parties and can even lead people to avoiding each other completely, because avoiding them obviously avoids the conflict. And that's obviously as an alternative to just dealing with the issue. I've experienced that before. Instead of kind of just talking about an issue, especially at work, instead of just talking about an issue and dealing with it right away, I kind of just avoid, and then I don't want to super interact with the person. I guess it depends on your job if that's a useful strategy or not, but kind of it's worked for me a little bit. One thing that stood out for me with the reading was discussion about passive-aggressive behavior. Explained that when people avoid conflict, they sometimes communicate their frustration indirectly instead of honestly discussing the issue. It kind of made me realize that avoiding conflict doesn't actually make the problems disappear. I mean, it can sometimes. It just depends on the type of problem again. But it usually just changes how it shows up in a different way. Usually, sometimes more people will get involved, or it just starts affecting different aspects. So yeah, that's what I have to say on this discussion.